see. In my, oops, go live. Okay. Hello, I think I'm live now. Um, let's see. Up, it's going to play a commercial before I go live. Oh, that's no fun. Okay. Um, that's really scary. Okay. Where's where's my video? What? Oh, I don't know how this works. Okay, there I am. So sorry. I get so confused with all this technology. Just because they make it confusing, not because I'm a neophyte or anything like that. So I'm just going to put a couple more colors down on my palette and I will be ready to go. Just need to pull out my orange. Please, if you're not watching this live, don't just forward ahead about a minute and you'll see me start painting. If you are here live, go ahead, start asking me questions or something like that, and I will be sure to answer. Let's see if I can get the chat to spring up so I can actually read it. Um, Live chat. Okay, I don't know why it's all the way at the bottom of my screen here where I can't see it. Let's get it up higher. It's YouTube people. They change the layout all the time and then I never know where I am. Okay, live chat. Oh, I see. I have the screen. I have the wrong. Oh, stop it. I'm sorry. Just bear with me a second here. There we are. Okay, I can see your chat. I can see me. And it looks like I'm frozen. That's fantastic because I have like four webcams going at the same time, so you can see every part of this and play. It is playing. I don't know what's going on. Am I live? It says it's live, but it looks like I'm frozen. I am going to refresh. Maybe it will fix it. Okay, regardless, I'm going to start painting soon. I just need a couple more colors. My quinacridone red, my naphtha. Okay, it doesn't look like I'm frozen anymore. Thank goodness. You guys can let me know if you can hear me or or if I'm frozen or whatever, and then start asking me questions. I'm happy to answer them. Let me see. I've got white, um, Hansa yellow, permanent orange, naphtha red, um, my alizarin crimson. Tonight I'm going to add into the palette. It's not usually on my palette, but oh, that's not the color I wanted. I wanted quinacridone red, and I put out the alizarin, and I dropped the lid on the floor. Oh, yes, this demo is going so well tonight so far. Okay, and I just kicked the lid way underneath. So, okay, I'll have to have an open tube of paint throughout the demo. And this is just, this is just how it goes. Okay, oh, you can see my palette. I forgot. You can see all the colors there. And I should have enough blues to start with. So I just want to get my my burnt umber here going, or sorry, burnt sienna, because she has a lot of that color in her skin tones. Usually I mix those colors, but all my dark colors are very transparent. And if I want to get any real thickness in her flesh tones, I mean thick paint, and keep it dark by not adding white or yellow. My yellow is a little transparent too. So, um, oh, there's the lid. I did manage to kick it out. I lost my mind. Okay, so now to start with the painting, I'm about, what, 5 minutes in? I've probably lost about 30 viewers by now. Let's see, it usually tells me how many people are here somewhere. It says, oh yeah, I've got 14 of you. Thank you. I think I'm one of them, so 13. Okay, so I just want to use a beat up stiff brush to start with, just to get some of my marks in. This one's a little bit loose. Let's find one that's going to work well. And what I have up on my screen, actually, I don't even have it up on my screen. This is like total disaster tonight. Really sorry. So let me see if I can get the reference up on the screen for me to see. You have the reference, you can see it. That looks like it's it. I'm getting it up on the screen here. Nope, that's not the right one. Grab the wrong one. Reference, that's you. Yep, perfect. So the way I like to work is you're gonna. Oh, this is not going well so far. My Photoshop is buggy tonight. Okay, there it is. So there's the reference. I have it site size, meaning that the size of the image, it's it's not going to, this is not going well. How can I fix this? I wish you guys could see what I'm seeing. It's totally like splitting her in half when I try to put her the right size. So anyway, it's site size, um, and when I'm painting, I can look at the image and look at my palette, um, and they will both be the same size in my vision, so I can use the visual size as a reference, and then I can also measure directly. Fortunately, I'm going to have to close this and then reopen it. Let's see if I can do that. Um, Photo reference, please. There you are. Open in Photoshop. Open on this. Okay, I think we're in business now. Oh, I'm gonna have to quit out of Photoshop. Just bear with me, really, guys. Really having a bit of a struggle here to quit Photoshop and reopen it, and I have like 30 files open. Just let me know how you're doing tonight. Ask me some questions. I can start answering that while I'm getting ready. Master Live Demo, save. Save. Save that. And one more save. Okay. Save. And then I can quit Photoshop. I have this little bug with Photoshop. Sometimes it won't let me show the images 100%. It splits it in half, and then I have to restart Photoshop to get it to look right. And so that's why. And then so that will take a minute to reboot. And let me see if you guys have questions for me. Okay. It says 21 viewers. Okay. Are you excited for those cool highlights? Yes, that's one of the reasons why I picked this image. So, um, okay, please don't be buggy this time. Go up to 100%. Yeah. Okay. So, I don't I don't think you can really see what I'm seeing, but what I have up on my giant monitor is um, the image. I have to reach around all my cameras to get it right next to my panel, and then um, I have my panel right next to it. So I have my image and my panel, and then I just look back and forth. I can measure from one to the other. And so now finally, we're about 10 minutes in, I can finally start to measure some of this. You have to pardon my reach if I block the camera with this. Okay, so start to look at where the side of the head is. Let's get a little bit of paint out on the palette. Just going to start with a very light color, just so if I make a mistake, I can come in darker later. And just so you know, I don't have any solvent um, in my in my setup tonight. I've started going solvent free. Now, there's lots of companies that sell a solvent free thinner, um, like a gel that you can mix in. But I'm deciding to use just oil to thin my paints. It's a little bit tricky because you don't want to have too much oil. So you just kind of have to start off with just a little bit of paint in the beginning and then add paint as you go. So it's like I said, it's a little hard to measure. Let me get my phone out of the way since I'm done with Instagram. I was announcing to my audience that I was going live, and okay, that's where her chin is. Okay, so I'm looking at the crook of her neck. That's right here. If so, I got it how far it is from the side. I want to see right where her collar touches the back of her neck. That's right here. So once I get some of these cross sections, not cross section, what would you call them? Just um, the indices. Now I sound like a mathematician. The indices of um, some of these landmarks, then I can come in pretty confidently as long as I know that those marks are in the right place, just indicating where this beautiful headband, beret, whatever you want to call it, headband, I guess it is, just this beautiful red color. I have to say that the outfit, I think it was something that Oprah bought for her for this event. I don't think it was cheap, but was a stunning outfit. And I think yellow's her color. I've seen her in other videos where she's wearing lots of yellow. So okay, so for me, the placement of the eyes I is really important because it's the thing that I end up having to fix so many times. So this is the height of the eye right here, or one eye. And I can get the location. This part in the beginning maybe is a little bit boring visually, but for you guys who want to know how to do this, um, it's worth spending this time in the beginning to get everything in the right place because that will save you tons of time and frustration later on. But the other thing is I've gotten good at moving stuff around. If an eye is in the wrong place, I just repaint it. No sweat. I've just done it so many times. Um, it doesn't really bother me that much. And there's nothing worse the painting if something looks, it's well painted but it's in the wrong place and you refuse to relocate it because it looks good but it's ruining the painting. It's kind of one of those things. Yeah. Okay, and then hairline, just gonna go like the center of her forehead, the height right here, the center of her hairline I should say. Need to pick a spot. So that's right there. Okay, and I know I'm gonna be, that's where there's gonna be some black. This comes down. So she has her finer hair that's pulled back here, and then her braids start a little bit higher up. And then is somewhere back here. Let's see if I can get some measurements for that too. That's the right place horizontally. Let's see if I can get the, yep, that looks like where it is. So I'm just going to put a little bit of a darker mark here just so I know where I am. Got her chin about here. Her eye. Her other eye. She has almond-shaped eyes, so I have to keep them very narrow to maintain that shape. The eyebrows. This eyebrow is higher than the other. And there's going to be an angle there. Let me make sure that I haven't lost you guys. Okay, I'm not frozen, so that's good. It's a hi from Nebraska. Haven't caught a live YouTube demo in quite a while. Yes, I haven't done one in a while. Hello from Mexico City. Welcome. Are you going to be painting on the white canvas? I guess I'm seeing. I can see her. See your palette and you. Yes, that's. I think I've already answered that question by painting. Do you do an underpainting? No, I just paint. I I have ADHD, so I need to get right into the painting. No underpainting. Is the canvas white or gray? It's white. It's just the lighting's low, and I've actually now have a homemade softbox, so the light's a little bit dispersed. I can adjust the color a little bit. Let's see if I can do it. Um, See if it lets me do it without breaking everything. I know I'm going to get myself into trouble here. If I go in and do advance and I adjust the brightness a little and the contrast, I may have to adjust this a little again a little bit later, but that looks a little bit whiter. So let's see if that holds up. I'm going to keep it there. Okay, great. So no, it's not gray. It's just I'm gray. Um, I look kind of blown out because I have a third webcam now, and I actually don't have the software to monitor it. So it's I'm just going to be whatever it is I'm going to be. Okay, so facial features, we have the nose that comes down. She has a very specific nose shape here. So it's a little bit pointy. Um, with sort of this triangular tip shape there. And I really want to pay attention to this because there's some really nice reflective light on the tip of her nose, as some purples coming in there. The same with her lips. In fact, I'm just going to throw in a little bit of alizarin crimson. It's actually alizarin permanent, but that's a whole story in itself. Usually don't have that on my palette, or recently I don't. I just mix a little purple with quinacridone red, and I can get that same color. So if you can see here, let me see if I can see it. This is the Alizarin Permanent. It's very transparent. It's sort of this very dark red. It's good for the separation of lips and shadow. But I can use this quinacridone red. I can throw a touch of purple in it, and I can get just about the same, or very close to the same color. So anywhere in my palette that I can eliminate colors, um, I will, just to simplify it, unless I just use a color so much that it's not worth the pain to keep on remixing it. And just want to indicate her eye. She's looking at us kind of at an angle here. And I'll double check these measurements here to make sure I'm not wildly off. This is where I usually get into trouble here. because the profile of the face, I'll tend to make it like leaning one way or the other. See, this measurement's off somehow. It's out here. And her cheek, the apex of her cheek is a little bit lower. It's actually out here somewhere. So I am off. And this is the shadow side of her face. I'm going to go ahead and that's so transparent. This is why I wanted the burnt sienna here to add a little bit of, to get a little bit of body. It's okay. I can keep it transparent. Shadows like being transparent. It gives it more depth. Or I like shadows transparent, I should say. We have her teeth. Those are going to be kind of leaning blue. I mean, everyone thinks of teeth as white, but teeth in shadow are not white, and only sometimes the specular highlights on the teeth will be white, or you can paint them as white. But if you paint all your teeth just white, it just looks kind of strange, like their mouth is glowing. And I'm going to fill up a little bit of the naphthol red for her lower lip. She's got quite a bit of purple in there still, though, so just going to line it a little bit. And right in the corner of her mouth, I'm going to throw in quite a bit of purple. That's where it goes into shadow. Okay, I feel like the measurement's off a little bit here, so let's make sure I'm not wildly off. Do you know what? There's something wrong with this image. It's not the right size. Let's make sure that I have it. Yep, it is the right size actually, but my measurement markers were not right. Okay, got that fixed. So the corner of her mouth is right about there. Let's check the height. Sort of like carpentry, you measure twice and paint once. Okay, that's in the right place so far. So my paintings tend to look really messy until I get towards the end. And then I end up doing a lot of big, clean strokes, and then it all starts to look better somehow. Okay, gotta keep this cheek in shadow so that we see her nose. And then there's that little bit of shadow, and she has a very short distance between her nose and her upper lip. It's just part of the characteristic of her face. It's just that distance right there is really small. It would be really easy to go too long with that. And even though in this photo the inside of her nostril looks black, I'm putting quite a bit of red in there because that's what we would see, not in the camera, but in real life we would see a little bit of red just from all of the light bouncing around through the nostril wall or into the nostril, and there's just from the blood flow inside of your nostril wall, it's going to give kind of a cast red color. And then this is where the highlights are going to come in. I'm actually just going to paint around it for now and not worry about trying to, because what's going to happen is it will get muddy at first, then I'll have to keep on adding white to get back to that color I want. So for right now, I'm just going to keep it white. And then we have the forehead. We want to maintain that shape. We want to think about it curving up like this. And then on the outside, we got some purple in her forehead here. when I say purple, I don't mean like pure purple. I just mean it's purpler than the colors around it. And in this case, it's lighter in color and more purple. And then we have I in this photo there's this a woman with a blue jacket behind her, and I really like that color. In this case, I'm using cyan, um, phthalo phthalo blue, which is a cyan color. I can pull out my cerulean blue if I really want to get like intense and light color. I'm gonna have to go lighter too here a little bit. And the point of her cheek is actually just a bit below her nose. And then it comes almost like a straight line. I don't want to lose my contour, but have to think about generally it's a straight line. And we got her chin and her neck, something like that. Okay, we have the neck on this side. Let's get the right color on the brush. And her collar. Just something close to that. We know her ear is right here, with her neck coming up behind, and then her hair starts right around there. Okay, so just generally, just feeling out those shapes. If I look at her eyes, this is really important to maintain the relationship between the eyes. So one is the measurement of the location of each eye, but if that measurement's off a little bit and the relationship between the eyes then is off, then that will really look wrong. So you got to keep that in mind. I am going to be putting quite a bit of blue in the white of her eye, especially near um, the iris. Get a little bit heavier with where she has some eyeliner on her eye. Then I see purple shadow in the area above her eye in the shadow side. You got a little purple in there. So I need to maintain a value relationship between the light side and the dark side of the face. So this part has to be lighter, and then the shadow has to be darker. Darker, I said. Weren't you listening to me? Darker, darker. So that's really important. If you look in the photo, you can see there's contrast between that light side and the shadow side. If you don't have that, then the painting will start to look flat. Then we have this beautiful reflective light on her nose. It's almost, it's really catching the color of the sky on her nose here. It's just a straight reflection of the sky. And a little bit here. Now I'm actually going to put some color in there just to start to get the feel of it. I'm going to have to come back and restate a lot of these colors and adjust them before they start to feel right. But I'm just sort of plugging away, trying to get kind of a generalization of those colors too. I like to get something down just so I can start to see the whole thing. And then as I adjust it, then it will pull together more. Kind of reminds me of, I don't know who's familiar with Joaquin Sorolla. He's a Spanish Impressionist painter from the turn of the 19th and 20th century. And he would paint very loosely, and he'd have all these students. They were like apprentices, and they would watch him paint. And they would say the whole painting looked like a total mess. And then he said, hey, everyone, go away for a minute. They would go away and they would come back, and the whole thing was like it just looked almost like a photograph when they came back. It was, um, I guess at that point he was able to like slowly pull all the transitions together so it no longer looked like a mess, that each sort of patch of color was being what had the right relationship to the next patch. He just needed to be alone for a minute to concentrate. Um, but they all thought he was doing something like some hocus pocus something that he didn't want them to know about. And and then all of a sudden the painting looked perfect. Um, I think maybe he liked the mystery of it too, so maybe that added to it. That he didn't. He thought that if they knew, all he was doing was sort of sharpening the painting a little bit, sharpening up the areas that it would take some of the mystery out of it. And so I just always thought that that was funny that they didn't quite know what was going on. Okay, trying to adjust the color of her lips a little bit. I had them a little bit too warm. Let's make them a little bit cooler. So get kind of more of that sort of alizarin color there. And I'm just going to throw in an indication of that little space between her teeth just to sort of get a feel of where I am. I think it's right about there. And this is something I can measure. Right there. Yep, pretty close to the right spot. And then a little more white just beyond that. A little white. So right now, this is a rosemary brush that I'm using. I've bought a bunch of rosemary brushes and Trekell brushes because I thought it was time to be an adult and buy real good materials instead of the student student grade stuff that I have real good quality paints and real good quality panels, but then I was cheaping out on the brushes. And so I thought it was time to be a bit of a grown up, buy real brushes, invest in my hobby, um, and spend a little bit of money. And so now I'm testing the two, sort of seeing which ones I like better. I have to say they're both very good, and they're better than what I had been using. So, okay, so visually, I'm starting to compare things so that I know I'm on the right track. This is where my burnt sienna is going to come in handy. I'm going to throw a little red in there to get it a little more pop, and a little bit of white. Let's see if that's the color. I think it just needs a touch of orange or yellow in there. So my yellow, this Hansa yellow light, is just a shade on the green side. So if I put too much yellow in, then it can start to kill the intensity. So sometimes I just use the permanent orange for that purpose of just shifting the color a little bit. But the orange is handy because it's a way of lightening colors too without using white. Sometimes the white kills the intensity of the color too. It is notorious for, as you go lighter and lighter, for losing, unless you have a color with extremely high tinting strength, it will sap a lot of the color out. Let me get the right color underneath her eye. It's like she's getting a little bit of blue coming in. Yep, and I'm gonna be a little wacky with the blue there, just because it makes for more interesting painting, especially if you can toss in some strong complementary colors against each other in an area where the color change is much more subtle. But hey, we're painters, we're not photographers, so I'm just doing it. I do it because I like it. Okay, and then underneath her eye, that's not underneath her eye, underneath her eyebrow, and we got some white coming in, or white lighter, and let's get the shape of this eye a little bit better. I'm going to throw some red in the corner. I don't necessarily see it, but I know that it's there. And then I can play around with the white in the corner of the eye, just making it a touch darker so that we see the eye turning in space more. Got again some purple on the under edge, on the upper edge of her lower eyelid. Want a little bit of shadow underneath. And then we go right into that very beautiful reddish, too dark. So I have to remix. Yep, I gotta go lighter somehow without losing the color. Okay. Sorry, I have not been paying attention to your questions at this point. At some point, I'll take a little bit of a break to answer some of those. Just bear with me. If you're just bored out of your skull, I'm sorry. Painting is just painting. Okay, want a little bit of cool in that light. We know that most of this is sky that's giving her those beautiful highlights. So I'm pushing them blue. Okay, and I need her nose to be turning a little bit away from us. So this needs a little bit of a darker edge right there, purple, or it can be a little bit of purple. And then leaning red. And then towards us, it's going to be lighter. So just kind of getting some of those shapes. And I'm losing the under side of her nose a little bit. I really have to at some point refine some of these shapes to get the anatomy right. So you got some beautiful orange right here on the wing of her nostril. And then we'll get this fold of her cheek, the labial fold. I just make up these names as I go along. I don't know their actual names. I mean, I had a really good anatomy class. I took anatomy with Steve Houston, who's this really great, well known figurative painter. And the anatomy class was really good, but we didn't do. I know in some schools they do an artist anatomy as if it were a medical class, and you have to memorize all the Latin names for each part of the face, and we didn't do that. We were more interested in the shapes and some of the basic names, but beyond that, we weren't getting into every tiny muscle. That's and I think sometimes that can be a little bit of a waste of time. It's like you want to learn the visual vocabulary of the face. You don't need to know every name. If you know what it should look like, where it is, and more or less. If it's a muscle, if it's bone, if it's tissue, that's fine to know that. But to know every Latin name, I don't know. What does that mean to someone who speaks English or Chinese or some other language? Like, what are those Latin names? They just are a point of reference. Some people like to use them as a weapon to say, "Oh yeah, that's the latissimus dorsi. That's the zygomatic arch." Whoa, whoa, whoa. It's just like I don't really care. Okay, so let's soften up some of those transitions, like I said, so that we see these things moving in space a little bit better. Highlights a little bit stronger at that point. I'm going to throw in just a little bit of black. And yes, I have black in my palette, so you neo impressionists, you're just going to have to deal. And so I'm just sort of getting the general shape of her hair. At some point, I'll come in and put the location of the actual braids. But I need something to kind of anchor for right now without spending a lot of time. And sort of overall feeling of those wisps of hair, it's kind of a bluish gray thing going on, interspersed with seeing the skin tones in between. So just the general idea is this. I just need to get something down there so I can start to see the color relationships, start to feel those highlights. And then here where I do have those strong highlights, I'm going to just start piling in white. I'm going to start doing it now, but towards the end of the painting, I want those to be fairly thick. And what that does is it allows the painting to catch light in more than one way. It's the color, but it's also because it has texture. When you light the painting, it catches the light more because of the dimensionality of the paint than just the flat painting. And so that's just one sort of device to create a little more contrast in the work, a point of difference that can give it a little more dimensionality. I mean, I know some painters that kind of like David Lafell that almost are sculpting with the paint and the tactileness of it, and that's just one way of painting. But you can still get a lot of the effects that of form and dimension without um, physically making the paint dimensional. I have to move this highlight over a little. Okay, time for a new rag because I'm just getting oil all over my hands. Okay, I can see I've been crouching down, so you guys have just been seeing my forehead. Um, I swear by next week, if I do another live demo next week, I will I will get the I'll purchase this camera was really cheap, my third webcam. So cheap, in fact, it didn't come with the software to adjust it. It just you go to the manufacturer's website and then they ask you for $8 to purchase it. So But you save about $80 on the camera, so it's funny though. It's like, you get a cheap camera and then nothing comes with it. So her cheek is sort of this mauve color, and then we go back into that sort of darker orange, reddish orange here. I'm actually not using the burnt sienna as much as I thought I would be. It's because it's not really getting to the color I want. And I'm so used to using stronger colors and then graying them down as I need to. People say, like, how do you keep your colors from getting muddy? And I usually have the opposite problem, is that I have too much intensity in my colors. Things look almost too cartoony, and then I have to knock the vibrancy down to make it look like it's of this planet. Okay, lots of purple again in her neck. Especially against the white of this shirt, which again is not white, it's purple or blue. Okay, that's not the color I wanted. There we go. So we have her larynx here, and then her jugular coming down. At some point we'll get to her earrings. So I'm looking at the line of her neck. It's coming right about sort of towards that tooth separation there. So it's a little bit over. Just sort of comparing things so I get my alignments right. So let's fill out the rest of her cheek so that we can start to feel the turn of the form. And our ear, we'll just bring it in a little bit. Something was kind of off with either my measurement or maybe my painting's off and I'm putting things out of whack, but we'll get there. Okay, so now if I just fill in some of these areas that are still kind of blank, then I can start to see the colors. Let's get a little bit of this lighter color in here. Her upper eyelid is catching the light also. There's a separation of the eyelid. So I'm using a flat brush, not that it's flat, but it's the shape of the brush is a flat. And I used to use filberts more. They kind of had a roundish end, kind of a teardrop shape, I guess. I don't know how to describe the shape of a filbert, but it's a brush that John Singer Sargent liked to use, and a lot of painters now who do alla prima really like that shape. And I've just started using flats because I just find it kind of versatile and sculptural. I can turn the brush in different directions and get either a fine line or a broad line, or I can use the corner of the edge to put in a little detail, more like the highlight of an eye or something like that. So don't have to change brushes quite as much, but when it comes to some things, you do sometimes have to pull out the detail brush. Just going to get that little bit of eyelashes or mascara that comes up just a little bit. And all these things are a lot more subtle than I've painted them right now. I just have to, some of the things I'll have to come in and make a little stronger, and other things I'll have to knock back until they look right. So what I'm looking for is I want similar contrast that's in the photo to the painting. I have her eyebrow way too reddish. It's almost a cooler color here. So I'm going to actually throw a little bit of blue in until I'm knocking down that red quite a bit. So, and at some point I need to look at all the relationships in the face to make sure I have things in the right place. Because I've just gone in quickly and thrown everything in, and there's likely to be some things that are quite a bit off. I can feel her nose. It's feeling like it wants to be further out or start higher or something. So it feels like I have it curving too soon. Let's adjust this eye. And I also want to get a remeasure where the eyes are, because those are usually wrong early on in the painting, and it takes a bit of measuring and going back and forth before I have the eye placement right. Okay, I am going to take a little break, see if you guys are still with me here, answer some of your questions, and let's see. Okay, where does it say how many people are here? Oh yeah, 25 watching. Okay, and I've been on for almost an hour. Um, okay, someone said Malagi, Mexico City. Is the canvas white or gray? Answer that. Nice. The size of your desktop screen is the same as of the canvas. Yeah, I have a screen that's a 27-inch monitor, and it rotates, it swivels to be horizontal. So I can get this panel is 12 by 16, and so um, I can fit the whole 12 by 16 in my monitor, which is nice. I can even go up a little bit bigger. And so, yeah, I'm going to show you guys a little bit less of my palette and a little bit more of me. So let's see if I can do that. Oh, yes, that's spectacular. I'm sorry, you're not going to see my white over here when I'm mixing, but that's okay. Just, yeah, it looks better. And, yeah. Okay, back to the questions. Your brushes do you recommend? So right now, Drakel and Rosemary are the two brushes that I've been buying. I like Golden Taclon, which is the type of brush hair. It's a synthetic hair, and so most of the brushes that I've purchased recently are that. But I'm finding some brushes that are a little bit stiffer too. So I'm trying a synthetic mongoose brush from both manufacturers, and um, there's another one called Spectrum, I think it is, from from Trakel that I haven't started using yet. Actually, I have one that I've pulled out. It's this long flat. It may be a little bit too long for me. It's just I they didn't have a size in between um, a bright and this long flat. I just like a regular flat, and I find the bright's just a little bit too short and stubby for me. So I went with this longer one, and I think this is just a little bit too long. But I bought a lot of those, so I'm going to use them until they die, and then I'll look for a different option. Okay. Um, Kathy says, looking good, mesmerizing to watch you. Oh, that's good, because I'm always worried this is so boring. Haha, labial fold, not so PG. Oh, yeah, that's probably not what it's called. Sorry, that's like my bad Latin. Um, let's see if this YouTube video gets taken down because of that. As a beginner, we should work with multiple subjects like landscapes, portraits, still lifes, or just focus on one to master that. I don't know. I did landscape painting for years and did lots. Um, oh, what happened? Where's my? Where did my screen go? Oh, I'm talking to you guys and my whole screen went black, but I'm sure that it's just me. Um, okay, looking good. So now it's back. So what I was gonna say, I was a landscape painter for years. I knew in the back of my mind I really liked portraiture, but I avoided it just because it's hard and I wasn't that good. And I thought maybe I'm just not really a portrait painter, even though that's I like to paint people's faces. So at some point in my early 50s, I just rolled up my sleeves and just started doing all portraiture. And I did get a lot better at it. So um, that's why you guys are watching me, because I got a lot better at it. Um, so that's all I got to say. And I think that was the last question that's there, and I'm going to get back to painting. Thank you for your patience with me, and I'm going to throw some of the blue that's coming in the background too. I think I'm going to dig out that the cerulean blue because that's sort of the color that I need for this woman's jacket behind her. So I know I'm going to have to go lighter than that and still maintain that brightness. I mean, this phthalo blue has great tinting strength, meaning you can go really light and still maintain quite a bit of color. But that sort of neon blue, that's really hard to hit. You got to keep your colors really clean and still no. I can see I'm not going to get that color. It's the difference between, electronic media and paint. Sometimes there's colors that you're just not going to get. Um, Gamblin makes a line of radiant colors that are just a radiant white, they call it. It's titanium white, but instead of using linseed oil, it uses safflower oil, which makes it just a cooler color. Cooler, not being like cool dude, but cooler on the spectrum. And let's see if I can see. Now I don't have all these patches yet, so I'm still digging for colors. And it may not even be in here because I may have moved it to my other bag. I'm not seeing you. Nope. So the cerulean blue is, here you are. This is a really old color. I must have bought this 20 years ago because it is so beat up and crusty, but the paint's still good. You can see it right here. Oh, it's so thick. Oh, I can barely get it out of the tube. Um, yeah, like it must be 20 years old or so. It could be even older than that, 30 years old. I might have bought it in art school, who knows. Although I wasn't buying much Gamblin paint back then, I was really economizing, and Gamblin paints were a little more expensive. So it's so thick that I can't even get my brush into it. Okay, so there it is, almost pure. I'm going to add some white to it. I may have to pull out my radiant white because I do have some of that. But what I was saying is Gamblin has these radiant colors. It still doesn't look much different. It doesn't look any brighter. Um, it's almost like this bright turquoise. Oh, do you know what I can add? Is just a touch of my um, phthalo emerald, which pulls it more towards the green, but can be a little more intense. As I add white, it will cool up. Let's see if that gets us anywhere. No, it's still not going to get us there, but at least the green makes it feel like it's shifting as they go lighter. It doesn't feel so dull. Now there is a way to get these kind of intensity of color although I hadn't been using it, which is to paint transparently. It's a real trick, because what you're essentially doing is you're doubling the color, because the light, um, I just blew it, I added white to it. Okay, let's try this again. So what you want is the pure color, and you want to thin it down, and then you lay it down very transparently, and that creates, the light passes through the color and bounces back out, and that can create a really high level of intensity that you can't get any other way. Actually, I do know an artist. Let's see if I can remember his name. So one of those illustrators from the 70s that did a lot of movie posters and stuff, and especially he would do a lot of war scenes and fighter jets kind of stuff, and he actually painted with fluorescent paint. And I don't know if you know how fluorescent paint works, but it color shifts the spectrum, so you're actually looking like it's, the color's more intense than it could possibly be, because it's by pulling in different spectrums of light together and bouncing it out as one color, it makes it glow. So it's sort of those day glow colors. And he used to paint with that to make sure that he got the greatest amount of intensity that he could, so that when it was reproduced, that the reproduction would be the highest saturation of color where he put the um, where he put those colors. I don't know if I'm going to indicate where the microphone is. I mean, it makes sense from a historic point of view of this painting that it sort of tips its hat to this being her inauguration um, stuff, her inauguration recital of her poem, and that the microphone sort of puts it in time and place. Okay, just throwing in a little bit of background interest here. It's not that important. I can keep this stuff very abstract and very soft if I want. But right now I just kind of want the colors around her head so that I have something to work against. I'm going to have to measure this a little bit better to get the right shape for her head. Okay, and I can, now that I'm caught up on the questions, I see another one. So happy to watch this. I would really appreciate it if you could tell me where you bought your camera. Haha. Yes, everything on Amazon. So I have I have three webcams altogether. I have one for the palette, have one for the painting, and I have one pointing at me. Two of the cameras are Logitech 922 CX 922s, and the other one is a Nexco. It's a new one. The Logitech's got very expensive all of a sudden, and this Nexco camera looked like exactly the same design, but just a different manufacturer, like a not unknown Chinese brand, and so that made that camera $30 instead of 109. So I thought I'd just try it. Since it was my third camera, if I didn't love the quality, I had two other cameras that I could use instead. I'm gonna carve her cheek a little bit because that's where I'm seeing it. Let's okay, see if this brush is long enough. Checking out the bridge of her nose. That's in the right place. Like I said, I'll have to come in and soften up some of these transitions to make the form look like it's all um, working together. It's turning in space. I'm missing a coarse shadow here, which means that this form isn't going to look like it's turning. I'm really missing the highlight on the top of her forehead there. And I feel like this is just over a little bit. So just starting to refine shapes here. I swear this is going to come out great. It just looks like a mess right now. Patience, patience. It has to look messy before it looks pretty. I swear. I swear it'll get there. And I don't have this eyebrow over far enough. Lots of purple here. And one thing I want to do is I want the brush strokes to start to mimic the what I'm actually seeing. That's the most powerful way of bringing areas forward and having them pop, is if the brush strokes themselves, instead of like taking little tiny little brushes and trying to render out every little shape and color, you can take a big brush and make it do what the photo is doing, or what, or if you're working from life, what you're seeing, then that's really powerful. Um, it creates a kind of aesthetic that you can't get any other way. That sort of the power of the brushstroke. And then when you back up, it just looks like that thing. I mean, that's, to me, that's why I paint, because I love that. I know I'm beginning to sound like Bob Ross or something, but hopefully I sound more like John Singer Sargent. Um, don't really love Bob Ross paintings. I know, I'm probably going to hurt a few feelings here, but I mean, they're great for what they are, but they're not. They're kind of junky in terms of art. art. Okay, I know I'm going to start getting some hate mail and stuff, and some negative comments, but I mean, just being honest, how I feel. I think it's one reason why I started becoming a landscape painter initially, is because I just thought the world misunderstood what good landscape painting was. I mean, it turns out there was a whole lot better landscape painters than me, but um, I don't know. Those Bob Ross paintings, or the people that paint like that, those are not, they're not good. I know, to each their own, but yeah. Okay, I better stop talking about that before, I mean, I think Bob Ross is great in some ways. I mean, magnificent entertainer. He's got the ASMR thing down. Like, I mean, I'm talking about him as if he's still alive, but he had that down. He was so calming, and can kind of put you into a kind of a trance. I think people felt really calmed by watching his videos. And he had this way of painting, this way of mark making, that he kind of could do things with a lot of confidence. He would do things over and over, and build up his ability to make the same marks consistently and have a lot of control. And in that way, that's, I can respect that. The things like atmospheric perspective and the sense of realism is kind of, you know, I mean, he is doing paintings out of his head. It's not like he's looking at a real landscape and plein air painting. So it can only be sort of what he imagined sort of things looking like. And he had sort of a vocabulary that, he would put a tree here and he knew how to render the tree in the way he painted, and the tree would look like the way he paints a tree. And then a lake or a reflection or something, a mountain. They all sort of had, he had a vocabulary for painting those things. And so that's how you would work. And I think we all, like, even when I'm painting this hair, I'm not really painting the hair yet. I'm just putting in marks that feel like they'll be close, and a lot of those marks will end up being part of the finished painting. What I'm not doing is going and making every little tiny little shape like photorealism, because I'm not a photorealist painter. I want something that sort of feels like the hair, or feels like the gold jewelry that's in her hair, so she's going to have something right there and something here and another one there. And I may go in and like make those a little bit more refined, but I don't necessarily have to, as long as they feel like the thing that I want it to be. I think you know what I'm saying. It's like you don't have to put in every little detail to get something to read correctly, but you do have to pay attention to how it reads when you do it. Is it kind of coming off as feeling like that thing? So right now, these highlights that I put in, they're not, the transition of them isn't quite right, so they don't feel like they're part of the flesh yet. But I can soften up the edges until, and look at the contour shapes and start to mimic those that I see. And so some of those things will start to pull together. And then I want to pay attention to the proportions, which I have off. I don't have enough jaw for her, which is throwing the shape of her face off. So her jaw is just a little bit deeper there. And then her chin is going to be pointier than what I have it. So that means that her neckline comes up higher. Have her collar here, and then the white of her shirt. Okay, so now I made her neckline a little bit too deep. Let's get a little more purple, burnt sienna, black, some strange mixture of colors. And I need to get her jaw to turn, so I need to go darker here. And then I need to get sort of like this purple shadow that's in here. Lots of purple. I'm glad I have a lot of purple out on my palette, because I need lots of purple. And need to get the shape of her lips right. So there's lots of adjustments that I need to do before this thing starts to feel like a good likeness. Let's get really a little bit bolder with the purple here. I may have to come in with a smaller brush right here to get these. Oh, and I have some beautiful green, and this is probably the color of the grass here that's reflecting up into her face a little bit. Or it could be someone next to her with a green shirt on. We don't know. All I know is the color that I'm seeing in the photo. Okay. Okay. Okay, this is the point where I start to stop talking, because I just get kind of in the zone. I'm going to tell you a dirty little secret, and and I won't use the wrong terminology this time and get thrown off of YouTube. I don't even know. It's partially because I'm dyslexic. I get all kinds of words mixed up and I say them wrong, and then I get myself into trouble. And I'm not even going to repeat the word that I said before. Um, but someone brought it up, and I apologize. That was not what I meant to say at all. Just so you know, I wasn't trying to be funny. I was just wrong. Um, but what was I saying? Um, oh, dirty little secret. So when I'm painting, when it's not for a live demo, I usually am streaming TV off of one network or another. I watch TV while I'm painting, and I paint usually about on average about 6 hours a day. And so this kind of, because I have a touch of ADHD, it kind of keeps one part of my brain happy while while I'm doing the work, because my brain can paint and not fully be, like, one part of my brain not be engaged at all in the painting. It can be engaged in something else. It's sort of like, some people can listen to music. I cannot watch a TV show and write a letter, for example. That's kind of the same part of the brain. But the visual part of the brain, as long as I'm not staring at the movie or whatever, if I just have it kind of going, and then some scenes I kind of glance over, that I can do. I can paint while doing that. And, and it kind of keeps me engaged. And while I'm doing the work, and I need to do the work to improve and get the mileage, and I enjoy it, I get kind of in this Zen place. It's very relaxing for me. It's one of my favorite things to do. So it's not just, I think this is a secret to being a good painter. I'm not going to lie. Find ways that you look forward to it and get into it, and um, and ways that you can do it day after day for long stretches of time, because that's the only way you're going to get good. If you feel like you have to force yourself to do it every day, well, that's not going to work. If you can make it something that you look forward to doing all the time, then you're going to be great. That's you're going to be amazing, because you'll just end up doing it all the time. So my cat Pasha would like to join us. Hi Pasha, how you doing? Meow. Yeah. Okay. Come on up, just for a minute. Hi everyone. I'm going to just show you Pasha. This is Pasha. Hi. I made a little makeshift sweater for him because he has this medical condition where he lost a bunch of hair on his neck, and then he started to scratch it and get all bloody and stuff. So this just keeps him from scratching it too much. Yeah, Pasha. That's a good old boy. It's a good old boy. I don't know if you can hear him purring, but he likes that. But now, time for you to get down. Sorry. No, he doesn't want to get down. Okay. Sorry, Pasha. I'm in the middle of a live demo. Sorry. I'm almost out of paper towels here, and thus what I'm going to do is probably run and get the paper towels. Then I'm going to come back, and Pasha's going to be in my chair, because the only thing that he likes better than being in my lap is being on my chair. No, he's tapping me on the shoulder like, "Hey, I'm still here." It's so funny. He acts like a little person, like, "Dad, Dad, Dad." He doesn't know he's a cat. So I'm trying to get the right feeling of this hairline. There's sort of purple and grayish colors coming in here along the edge. It's catching the light of the sky a little bit, and so I kind of have to fake it a little bit until I start to get the right feeling, and then I can come in and put in some of the details. Okay, and I kind of feel like I'm giving her a little bit too much forehead here. So I'm going to come in with the blue color and I'm going to carve out a little bit here. And then this highlight actually, I think, is a little bit higher. Yeah, no, Pasha, I can't play right now. I can't. Sorry. Go chew on my stuff. Okay, gonna fix her eye. Like I said, at some point I am gonna have to switch to a little bit smaller brush to get some of these. So we're about an hour into the painting at this point, maybe a little bit longer. And I think I'm gonna try to work between 2 to 3 hours tonight on it. I'm not sure I'm gonna do all of that live, um, but I'm gonna try to stay on it for as long as I can. At some point, it gets a little hard for me to concentrate if I'm jabbering away, um, and then I'll turn you guys off. I'll put on some TV show and I'll get a little further in the painting. And I think what I'll do is I'll record that too, so that it'll be I'll have that available to use for my time lapse when I make a time lapse of it. Sometimes I do an after the live stream. I just do it on private and then I share it later, so that it's just me relaxing. I'll turn the sound off so that if people want to see how I worked further on in the painting, then that'll be available. And it's not that hard for me to do, just to keep the cameras up and keep them recording. Okay, it's got to feel like flesh. Got to get it there. So, okay, we got some blue colors coming in. Got some wisps of hair coming in. Some interesting grays. So here I'm kind of chiseling a little bit, and that's fine. So I'm looking at the photo, and then I'm trying to match little shapes that I see. And if I do it right, it won't take that much to kind of pull it together. If I don't, then it'll just look like a bunch of dabs of paint that don't mean anything. So I know this kind of bothers me. Her cheek isn't quite right, and I'm running out of white, so I may have to reload, because it just feels like paint still. It doesn't feel like flesh, and that it may be real subtle things that are keeping it from looking right. And so it's just working back and forth until some of those shapes start to resolve a little bit. Refining shapes, refining relationships. And it's little subtle things in the photo that help us know what the forms are doing in the face. And so, I've just taken a sledgehammer and just put in these shapes. I haven't really gone back and refined them. Um, the thing that makes the fold of an eyelid feel like it's actually folding. It's those little subtle transitions of color that, if we pay attention to them, then we start to see the anatomy and things turning in space. Here I'm doing a little bit of blending. You won't see me doing a whole lot of blending, because my paintings look the freshest when I avoid it. But blending is one great tool for bringing things together. Another is putting in transitional colors. So if you have two colors that are butting up against each other and there's too much contrast between them, putting down a third color between them is a way to keep your painting from getting muddy, and it also keeps the paint looking fresh because you can see all the brushwork even if the transitions are really smooth. So that's kind of what I'm doing right here, trying to keep on loading up the paint each time I put down a brush stroke. So she has this little darker ridge here above her brow, the bone of her eyebrow, and then I'm trying to get sort of these shape relationships, kind of like a posterization. I don't know if you know what posterization is. It's where you can break down a smooth object into discrete shapes and colors, and then you can paint sort of flat colors one up against the other, and it has the effect of being that smooth object even though you've painted it in flat shapes. And that's sort of how I work generally, is I'm painting kind of shape against shape and then maybe sometimes blending them together, but often I just keep on coming in with more transitional shapes to get the forms to read. So now I'm thinking about this forehead, trying to get it to turn in space. And so this highlight is no longer just a blotch of paint. If I pay real careful attention to it, got some purple coming in here along the edge. That is just the wrong color. It's actually just closer to kind of a grayish white. Because it's gray against that warm makes it feel coolish. If I keep on working that back and forth, eventually it'll feel like a highlight on the skin. And here's where I have to come in with some white. Let's see if I can find it. Okay. So here, titanium white. Occasionally I'll work with radiant white if I'm looking for a certain effect. It's a little more expensive and it muddies up, it dulls down your warmer colors faster. And so if you had a lot of cool colors that you wanted to keep the intensity, then that radiant white. And it may be in this painting, if I want to do the background brighter, I may have to pull that out to do it. So here, I'm trying to, in this, I really want to go thicker. This is a place where I can really get, a play between thinner and thicker paint. And really, really go for it. Let's get like pure white going in here. Yep, that's sort of what it needed. So let's see. Oh, I still have 20 of you here. What are you doing? Why are you watching me? Almost embarrassing. So all I'm doing is just, hacking away at a painting. Okay, again, with the highlight on her nose, same thing. It just looks like paint right now. But if I pay attention to all the relationships, I can start to get it to feel more like it's actually on the skin reflecting the light. It's not doing it yet. Okay, just trying to get some of these smaller shapes right. So she has this very angular shape on her nostril here. And then she has this beautiful highlight that's kind of leaning purple. And then I'm going to try to get her nostril just a little bit higher here. And then a bit smaller underneath. That's about right. Oops. Okay, just pushing the far edge of the nose, just having it turn faster than I had it. I have to go lighter here. And then I need that darker line that's mostly purple or black. Purple. This is the kind of thing I can go back and forth like 40 times before it feels right to me. I may spare you guys, but it's so subtle. If you don't get it right, then it doesn't read right. You know, the more I portrait paint, the more I realize that small, subtle changes make such a huge difference in a painting. And it's usually what's missing in most people's paintings is that they don't have that control or subtlety. And even though if a painting looks like wild brushstrokes, it can still have that kind of control that it needs to capture that sense of realism, where everything is just sort of just placed in the right shape. Now, if you look at the painting of something that's loosely painted but looks realistic, you would think that the artist just slapped some of these brushstrokes down. And having the privilege of watching some of these artists paint that I guess I paint in this way to some degree. Um, what I would assume was painted very quickly is painted almost in slow motion just to get the kind of preciseness. But at the same time, the coming with a large brush and a lot of paint, you know, makes it look very dynamic and quickly painted. It's in a way it's kind of a magic trick, or it's I don't know. I'm not describing it right, but it's um, what it looks like is different than how it's produced, is what I'm trying to say. And so, if you look at some of these paintings and you try to copy it or you try to get that effect, and you think it's by painting really quickly, a lot of times it's not. So, you see what I'm doing? I'm slowing down quite a bit here to paint some of these shapes, being very careful. If I'm not careful, then I have to come back and maybe paint it again and do the same thing. And then I have to come in with a lot of purple here and darker. Now that's a little bit too dark, so I need a little bit of white in there. But it is a pretty strong purple that we're seeing right here. And I'm willing to go too strong and then dull it down later. But I want to make sure that I get that color to begin with. And then it gets lighter and redder as but it's almost gray, so I don't want to go too red here. It's kind of a muddy gray. And then that edge almost is lost with the blue of that background. Let's get some of that color here. Okay, and I need to carve. So I've given her too much cheek. That's okay. And it's okay. See how soft I've made that edge? I think that's really lovely, and I may decide to keep some of that instead of just having a sharp edge there. That also helps it move back in space. That soft edge against a harder edge that's closer to us really pushes that back visually. I think it's one of those things that it takes a long time to master, that sort of the edge control, as we call it. But it's one of the most beautiful things about painting with oil paints is that you can kind of get that sort of very easily, that murkiness or the smudginess. It's almost like that smudge tool in Photoshop. Okay, what I'm not getting in the eye, and I think I do need a smaller brush to get this. So I'm pulling out one of my detail brushes that I recently got from Rosemary Brushes. This was designed to paint horticulture paintings, like flower. So I really need that eye to kind of turn away from us. And without that little highlight there, and a little bit of grayer color right near the iris, and then getting the right shape of the iris there. It's just not going to feel like it's turning. It's just going to look like this flat almond shape. And then she has these beautiful blue reflective lights that come in. They're very subtle. Now I have this smaller brush in my hand, and it would be, if I'm not paying attention, I'll work on the whole painting with it. But what I want to do is give it up, because I'm done doing what I needed to do. It's just so addictive. It's hard. But I know it will ruin the painting if I am not careful. Let's just do a few things here with it. If I use it loosely, then it's okay. Color on there, so I just wiped it again quickly. Okay, and I can see the shape of the eye still isn't quite right. It's a good thing I have this brush a little bit longer. Now she almost looks surprised with that eye, so let's not go too far. And then I'm getting kind of these reflective colors here. And I want to make the tip of the nose a little bit sharper with pure white right here. Okay, now if you think of every form in the face as being sort of its own little, how do I describe it, a cylinder or ball, it has all of the elements that give it dimension. It'll have a little highlight, it will have a little shadow, or it'll be going towards shadow. And if I pay attention to each one of those little things, I can get each area of her anatomy to come forward and to be well defined. And I don't want everything to be super well defined, but I do want areas to sort of have that kind of information that tells us what direction something's going in. This is just a mess here. I'm gonna have to clean that up. Okay, let's see if there was any more questions that I might have missed. Just one more. Bob Ross is clearly mostly about process and not the final product. Okay, doesn't sound like I offended anyone too badly with that comment. Okay, rolling up the sleeves. Got my messy palette here, and her profile's kind of pretty far off, but I can keep on refining that until it looks right. So some of these things I'm doing now in this demo, I'll spend days doing on a commission, working back and forth on certain elements until I feel them. I feel them in space. Hopefully I can get there a little faster in this demo. Okay, I don't think I gave her enough chin, which is okay. Okay, well now I have my bigger brush. I feel a little bit better that I'm not doing something illegal. And let's get her the right chin. Kind of like Mr. Potato Head, I can swap parts in and out until I have it looking right. Or maybe it's more like one of those suspect drawing, what do they call it, police renderings, where someone says, oh, well, the nose was wide here and this kind of eyebrow, and you sort of put all the pieces together. In the end, it looks like the person, sort of, as much as it can be with this sort of painting from a description. But you get someone the wrong nose or the wrong chin, it's sort of like that. You're just sort of swapping out one facial feature for another. I'm going to give her a little more teeth because I can. I think a little more on top. Soften the lip there. And pull them in a little bit on the side. And then I'm going to make them a little bit longer on the bottom. This is where I'm going to come in with some pure white. This is where the light is hitting the teeth right here. And there's just one far off tooth that we see right there. Yep. Do a little bit of blending here. Like I said, don't like to do a lot of blending, but sometimes that's just what the painting needs. Certain things sort of push back a little bit so that it all starts to work together. But that's not what I wanted to do. Wanted it lighter, but kind of a orangey color. Whiter, lighter. There we go. That's defining where the brow ends. And again, blending a little bit. It's not a crime. Not a crime when you know when to do it and when not to. And then here in the cheek, I want to go very orange. Trying to get some of that color that's in the photograph lighter and more orange. This is going to help us to turn the form because this is the lighter side of the face, and then it does get really much lighter here along the edge of the jaw. And this helps us see it as the form turning in space. Okay, not really getting the shape of her mouth here right. Does come out pretty far right here. And then her nose drops down a little bit lower. Get some of that white in here. Now, eventually it'll start to look more like her as I refine these shapes. Don't be afraid of the purple. It's such a strong color. I only want to get a little bit on the brush at a time. And here we get this beautiful reddish color that comes in the tip of her nose. It's like a almost pink. She has a little bit of a lift to her eyebrow here that's defining her expression. I may have overdone it, but I'm going in the right direction. we see a little bit of indication of her other nostril. Just, it's so subtle. You see it right here. This just gets a little bit whiter in that spot. It's one of those subtle things that, if you manage to notice it and capture it, then it does really help. So it's up a little bit higher here. And I have this purple line along the edge. It's got more red in it. Right here. It gives us information about her lower eyelid that I had left out. And I don't have the fold of her upper eyelid, so let's get that in there. It's not quite right yet, but it's getting there. And all these forms are very soft here. I'm just kind of pushing them back. Let's have the top of her forehead come up a little bit higher. We can cut into this. Really going much greener than the photo just because I think I need it to get that kind of vibrancy. Oops, went too dark there. Just trying to get some of her hairline kind of feeling like it's in the right place. Nothing's going to help that except for to paint the actual hair. So I'm just going to paint a little bit of this sort of blue and black striping that's happening. I can put in the details later. Just adding some color where I have all this white just to try to delineate some of the form that's there. Okay, it's 11 o'clock. We're about 2 hours in. I think it's in a good place. I'm going to keep on painting for a little bit longer if you guys want to continue to watch. We have 20 people still here. That's fantabulous. You're probably off watching a movie and have this on in the background. That's fine. I don't mind that. You're giving me YouTube watch time which is a valuable commodity. If you do any content creation on YouTube, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the more watch time you get, the more money they give you. I mean, through advertising or something. Or actually, the more they share the video, and then the more advertising you get. So, right now, from my YouTube videos, I make about $15 a month. Did someone think I was going to say 15,000? Funny. You guys are funny. I don't even know if I have the ear in the right place. I probably should check it before I put in these details. But it feels right so far. The reason why I'm tilting my head so much is because I have the camera right in front of me. You can see it right here. And if I don't, then it's kind of blocking me a little bit. Okay, want to get the dark shadow, sort of reddish and black here underneath her ear. Shadow of her hoop. And then her hoop. And this, I think, came from Oprah Winfrey. This was either a gift or on loan for her to wear. With her hoops with a little, I don't know if you can see it, it has a little bird cage. And it was a tip off to Maya Angelou because of her book, what is it called? The Caged Bird? The Caged something. See, I'm dyslexic. I'm just going to admit it right now. I don't read all those things. Okay, then I can come in with that little sort of goldish, whitish color. If I get all these things in the right place, it'll look like sparkling metal. If I don't, it'll just look like a mess of dabs of brush strokes, blobs of paint. So a little purple shadow along her collar. Go a lot darker. And while I have this color here, no, it's too big a brush to be trying to do what I'm doing, but yeah, you only paint once or live once or whatever. Trying to define where her form ends ends and the background begins. Maybe in a soft way, but so it's a little clearer. This is going to take a lot of back and forth to get the shape of this lip right. So here, I want to make sure that I'm getting her lip to be moving back into space, hitting this crease right here, and then coming back towards us again, only to move back into space again. So that's a lot that's going on in that sort of small space here. I want to make sure that I have her lower eyelid showing up there. She has a bit of highlight right on this lower edge of her nose. It has color in it. I'm just going to come in with white for now. And it's just a hard place to try to get color to work because it's so light and in such a small spot. If I hit it with white, then that's almost as good. And I can come back later and try to get a little bit of color in there. And I did not make her upper lid big enough, so just knocking off that line and trying again. It's a little bit better. Okay, kind of got this coarse shadow going on here. It really is leaning towards gray. I always say you got to have the grays in a painting to get the colors to work, because if it's all just strong color, then it doesn't hold together very well. Okay, gonna blend some of this here, make sure her lips are reading in the right direction. So they are coming forward here. She has a very strong mouth. So if I don't have her mouth forward, then it's not going to look right. Let's get a little bit of highlight here in the eye. So I'm using the big brush, but I'm able to hit those spots. Let's get a little bit on that edge of the upper eyelid. Sorry, lower eyelid. Right here. It actually looks more like a reflection because it's just one little spot, but let's carve into it a little. Let's get a nice blue reflected light on her chin. That looks great. This is one of my favorite things, especially with someone who has very dark skin, is to get these beautiful reflected lights to work. So that's usually on the shadow side of the face where colored light is coming in. And someone with very light skin, you're not going to see that as much. And plus, I want to start to define the shapes like her chin. Right now, I just have it as a sort of solid color, but I want to get kind of the top of her chin here and where there's a little bit of shadow coming across underneath. That's the wrong shape, but you get what I mean. Right here. And then we have this sort of light to dark coming here. The lightest color being here, and then transitioning. And she has these nice glossy lips, which we don't want to forget. And that's just really contrast between some of the dark, rich colors and then white or colored lights that sit right on top of it. Okay, and I'm missing the dark in the corner of her mouth here. More purple. Okay, let's refine her tooth shape here a little. Get that up higher. Okay, I had that separation of the tooth kind of at the wrong angle, so I'm trying to repaint that. And I may want to make it a little subtler than that. So you can see I'm not really painting every tooth. I'm painting sort of shadow part, the light part, and trying to have it move back in space by making the corners be a little bit darker. Sometimes it looks wrong if you go and you render every tooth. Even if you can see them in the photo, it never looks quite right in a painting. I wouldn't say never, but usually it can look kind of, I don't know, like overdone. Sometimes it just needs just a little bit of a subtler touch to get it to work. want some thicker whites here. Okay, just still. I'm going to be coming into her hair at some point and doing a lot more rendering. I'm going to save that for off camera or off live so I don't bore you guys with that. Just takes a lot of back and forth to get that to work. I think the main part of the face we have going pretty well. Have not touched her jacket at all. I'm going to have to clear my palette, put down a lot of yellow, and get that to start to work. Let's get a little bit of more red in here. Still don't feel like I have her jawline right. And this is something I'll spend hours going back and forth on a jawline till I feel like the shape of the face is right. It's just one of those things. It just takes time. It's like very subtle. It's if it's just off by a little, it can feel wrong. Yep, this is still not right. Okay, we're in about 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I have to decide what to do, whether I've done enough for tonight. Let me read some of these comments. Um, got someone saying Amanda Gorman, great. Um, and then a stop sign. Okay. Maybe he thinks I should have stopped. Stephanie says, just got my first oil painting supplies in yesterday. Can't wait to try them this Saturday. I love watching and learning. Thank you. And that's it. Okay. I think I'm gonna call it. This has a long way to go. I'm gonna continue to record and keep on working on it. And um, that's it. So thank you all for joining me. My neck's starting to hurt a little bit too. So um, I can see where, if I look at the photo on the screen, I can see where quite a bit of places where it just feels off. So this will give me a chance to sort of back up, regroup, kind of take assessment of um, the placement of forms. I haven't done a whole lot of measuring towards the middle of this painting, so there's an opportunity for things to start to wander off a bit. And so that's it. I hope you guys learned a lot, and thanks for joining me, and thanks for your great questions and comments. If you're not already following me, subscribe to my channel, please. And also hit the notification bells. That way, if I do another live video, um, you get to see it, or you get a notification as soon as I do it. Otherwise, YouTube decides whether it's going to notify you or not. I hate letting social media decide things for me that I find important, so hit that notification bell. Anyway, I will start to try to get into the habit of doing this once a week. I'm not committed to it yet, um, but we'll see. Depends on how many commissions I have at any given time. And um, again, thanks for joining me. Have a great night. Now I just have to figure out where the end button is somewhere here. Oh, there it is. Nope, it's not here. It's in my other on my other screen. Hold on. Okay, have a great night, guys. Bye.